Hey everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of Aliens vs. Avengers. We're going to pick up right where we left off. If you missed the first video, please go to my channel and check it out. It's the one previous to this one. And excuse me if you hear any loud noises because I'm recording during a thunderstorm, and while my window is sealed shut, we might still get some background noise there. But so when we left off, our heroes left Earth on that big ship of theirs, and I forgot a detail when we were talking about that. So the ship that Tony built was actually meant to have the possibility of just staying in space indefinitely and being a colony in and of itself. But when they took off, the ship was damaged. So we now find out around here that they actually have to land, and they're going to land on Mars. And Mars has been colonized, and it's a spaceport, and it's where a lot of the X-Men ended up going. So they're going to land on Mars, hoping to maybe, find some of their friends, but mainly to get parts so they can fix the ship and just stay in space, because they don't really trust landing anywhere at this point. The xenomorphs could be anywhere and everywhere. So that's what they do. And it's decided that Miles and Carol are going to go to the spaceport on Mars to see if they can get the parts that they need, if anyone's still alive, etc. And Tony says, no, I'm going to come too. And they're kind of like, what are you talking about? You're going to come, you're an old man in a wheelchair. And it turns out Tony is not in a wheelchair. The wheelchair is actually a suit. So old man Tony here, who's probably, 90 years young, is suited up once again as Iron Man, and it looks really cool. Let me see if I can get in a little bit closer. Yeah. And that's where we switch over to Mars, and we see Mr. Sinister, which I spoiled in the last video. And what Sinister has been doing is, first of all, he has a bunch of clones of himself. I don't even know how many of them there are. At least a couple dozen. Maybe even hundreds, it doesn't really show. But he has come across the facehuggers and the xenomorphs, and he is fascinated by them. So you see here, he's actually studying one of the facehuggers, and he considers the xenomorphs to be the ultimate next step in evolution. And it shows you here his lair, where he actually keeps all the dead X-Men. I think that's magic. You can see Colossus right here with a facehugger. Now, I don't know how a facehugger would get to Colossus. That one's kind of I'd like to see that in action. I don't know. If he just held his mouth shut, how's the facehugger going to get in? Anyway. And he goes on to talk about how the xenomorphs become the ultimate step in revolution because they always keep a little bit of the host. So it's kind of like the next step to immortality. That's how he sees it. He's crazy, right? He's batshit. Anyways, so the heroes, Miles, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, they're checking out the spaceport. No one's around. And who do they come across but Sinister himself, who basically admits that he's responsible for most of the death. There's no one left. And that he sided with the aliens, and he's already sent people to their ship. And here, back at Tony's ship, you see a bunch of Sinisters show up with these cannons that shoot out facehuggers. So we got Mr. Sinister, an army of Mr. Sinisters shooting facehugger cannons at people. That's pretty sweet. So Tony and Carol and Miles, they find out about this and they want to go back to help everyone on the ship, but that's when Sinister over here reveals that there are a bunch of xenomorphs with him and that he's taken their side. And for some reason, the xenomorphs are not attacking Sinister. They're only going for the heroes. And a battle erupts. Tony starts blasting his repulsors. Carol cautions them to not split up, because then they'll get taken down one by one. And the fight continues, but we see here one of the Xenos gets some acid on Carol's face. And that looks like it hurts pretty bad as she passes out. And when she comes through, there's Emma Frost. It turns out not all the mutants are dead. The Ice Queen herself. And then we also have the reveal of Logan. This Logan has a beard. But there's Wolverine. And as Carol slowly wakes up, she asks what happened to the others. And the remaining mutants here, who end up being Emma Frost, Wolverine, Manifold, Armor, and am I forgetting someone? I might be forgetting someone. We'll see when we turn the pages, but they tell her she shouldn't go anywhere because the only reason that they're alive is because their mutant abilities kind of grant them immunity to the xenomorphs. Whereas Carol doesn't have that. And if she goes back to try to help Tony and Miles or the others on the spaceship, she's going to die. But Carol can't live with herself. She feels guilt for abandoning Captain America and Hulk on Earth. She feels like she should have stayed behind to fight too, instead of go on the ship. So that's eating away at her. And here, this is Stealth, and she's basically she's the one who, her ability is she creates like this sort of suit of armor around her, but it almost looks like a projection, like it's red, you can see through it, but it's impenetrable. I only know her from the Marvel Snap game, so I'm not too familiar with her character. And anyways, this is what I just talked about is the conversation going on in these panels. Basically, the other mutants warning Carol that if she goes back, she's going to be dead. And Wolverine tells her it's one killing machine. I recognize another, and these xenomorphs, you don't want to mess with them. But Carol's like, I can't do that. It should have been me. I shouldn't have left Cap behind. I shouldn't have left the Hulk behind. She can't live with herself. She needs to be a hero, what she was born to do. So the next day, the X-Men, or not the X-Men, but the mutants decide to help her, and Wolverine takes her back to the spaceport, and that's where they find poor old Iron Man. Tony Stark has been killed by the Xenos. And just when everything seems to be perilous at its worst, who do we see in the sky? The Wakandans are back. Remember from the intro? Black Panther, T'Challa, and his son, and his army, and his ships have returned. And Carol's pretty happy about this. And I think this is the final issue. There may be one more after this. What I forgot to mention also is, so when they were speaking by the campfire during these scenes right here, they ask also, why wasn't Sinister attacked. And the mutants believe that Sinister has impregnated himself with one of the facehuggers, meaning he has a xenomorph inside him ready to burst out, but he's somehow managed to delay the process. So that's the reason why the other xenomorphs are not attacking him, even though he seemingly doesn't appear to be an alien. But he's got one of those things inside him. And that's what we see here. And Sinister is actually delighted about this. He can't wait for that xenomorph to pop out of him, because in his eyes, it's him evolving. It's not him dying and this weird species just coming out of him. For him, it's almost like giving birth to a child, or just taking it to the next level. And all the Sinisters are super happy about it. And finally, the first one here bursts. It finally happens. And out comes the little alien, and within a day, look at this, within 12 hours almost, it's completely evolved into an adult. And then the next day, it's towering over all. These are the normal xenomorphs, and this is how big Sinister's xenomorph became. And it's red, and it looks totally badass. It's one of the coolest things in this comic. So that happens, and the rest of the Sinisters are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing, and we can't wait for our xenomorphs to come out and all that," because they all have one inside them, and they're all just waiting for them to burst out. And one of them makes the mistake of saying that, well, this is the first one of the Sinister xenomorphs. It won't be that special anymore when the rest of them hatch, And this Xeno doesn't like that. Does not like hearing that he won't be special anymore. Takes this Sinister out. And the other Sinisters are like, well, okay, he was out of line, that's fine, but, you're not going to hurt the rest of us, are you? And that's exactly what happens. So the proto-Sinister Xenomorph, the first one here, basically controls all the rest of the Xenomorphs. It's because it's become the alpha. And so it, as well as all the other Xenos, attack the other Sinisters and kill them all. So all the Sinisters are dead, and the Xenos inside them. And there's only this one left. He kind of did our heroes a favor by doing that. He let his ego get in the way. Now, I don't know how much of Sinister's actual consciousness is in this Xeno, or if it's all just instinctual, but that smile, that's a Mr. Sinister smile. There's no mistaking that. Anyway, and here we get a bit of a backstory about what happened. So apparently Wakanda was the first nation on Earth to ever even have a space program. It allowed them to go into deep space and to colonize and create sort of this huge station that connected hundreds of worlds between each other with these gates. And it's what allowed Wakanda to thrive not only on Earth for all those years, but intergalactically. The only problem is the existence of these gates that connect all these different worlds allows the spread of the xenomorphs to happen just as fast. And in a matter of, a few days, hundreds of worlds fall because of how easy it is for the infection to spread, for the Xenos to spread through these gates, as you can see here. And so the Wakandans, now that they've dealt with the engineers, have to try to quarantine, this mess. And when they get back, all the worlds have fallen. Hundreds of worlds, they've all fallen except for two, which I believe are probably Mars and Earth. It's not explicitly stated, but, that's what it has to be, in my opinion. So it shows that struggle of them trying to quarantine and contain. It shows them killing other engineers. There's a plot in this comic book that I've not quite understood, even though I've read it multiple times. I guess there's two types of engineers, and they're at war with each other, and I don't know. It's not really well explained in my opinion, but maybe if you've read the comic, you can give me the cliff notes in the comment section. Anyway, it's something like that. Sorry, I have a bit of a runny nose. So, we're back here on Mars, and T'Challa and his son and his army are all there. And, Black Panther, he's sad. He sees Tony's died. He says, Anthony, you can finally rest now. And this is when they notice that there are a lot of Xenos headed their way. And they notice the apex, the Alpha Xeno right here, the sinister one. And Carol is not happy with this. Now, at first, the Wakandans fire on them. They fire on all the Xenos. And that doesn't seem to do much. And as you can see down here, a sinister Xeno is still around. So, what happens next is, sorry, my computer screen just went dark. So what happens next is Logan tells them to, when they spot the red one, Wolverine tells Manifold to create a portal so he can get close enough to take him out. And there's the portal being created right on top of Sinister Xeno. And Wolverine jumps out. Sinister sees him, and bamf, disappears. Just like Nightcrawler. And Wolverine's kind of dumbfounded. He's like, what the hell? Where'd he go? And Emma tells him, we've seen that before. They have Nightcrawler's powers somehow. He's somehow harvested Nightcrawler's powers and he can teleport. But he can only teleport short distances. And if you know Nightcrawler's power, Nightcrawler can only teleport to somewhere that he can see. He has to be able to picture it in his head and know exactly where it is. Which usually means he can't teleport too far away. Although we've seen him in the comic books and in the movies do incredible things. But anyway, this is a dumb Xeno. Doesn't have the intellect of Nightcrawler. So Wolverine's getting, he's fighting off Xenos, trying to get back to the Sinister to go after him. And the Sinister Xeno, bamf, just disappears again. And then Wolverine, I guess, hasn't noticed that through fighting all these Xenos, he's gotten messed up pretty bad. He's got burns and acid all over his face. Armor over here is fighting the Xenos, and she's saying that she's getting overwhelmed, even though, you know, her armor is impenetrable. But what happens is Sinister Xeno teleports inside the armor with her, and she hears him sniffing, and then of course she's done. She's dead. And Wolverine can only watch as he's literally burning alive from the acid. Like I said, it's pretty grim stuff, this comic. Emma Frost is still fighting off the Xenos here. And this is where Carol decides that, you know, she's gonna go out with a bang. And so she's basically gonna attack with all her power. And T'Challa tells her to be careful, and she says, there's no need to be careful when you don't intend to come back. And she just gives it everything. And unfortunately, that's not enough. That's not enough to take care of our friend here. So they're kind of at a loss what to do. And Black Panther is basically saying, we gotta go. Like, this thing's not, we can't kill this thing. We gotta get out of here now. And then we see what happened yesterday when Iron Man was fighting when he died. And what happens is Iron Man gets overwhelmed. He was about to fire off a huge repulsor ray or blast so that him and Miles could escape. But as he was about to do this and counting down from 3, he gets stabbed in the back by a Xeno. He fires off the blast anyways. And then Miles is standing over his body. And this is where Tony has a discussion, not with Miles so much, but with the symbiote. And he tells the symbiote, you know what to do. And the symbiote says, yes. And this is what the symbiote does. The symbiote leaves Miles and literally joins with the xenomorph and becomes this huge Venom Xeno. Which is look at this thing. Let me see if I can get a clearer picture of it for you. Look at that. That's so cool. So now these guys show up. Fast forward to where T'Challa and the rest of the Avengers and the mutants are fighting the Xenos. They show up, and Miles is really cool and relaxed. He shows up with Venom. And T'Challa's not quite convinced, but Venom goes in and starts attacking the Sinister Xeno. And they fight, and it's one for the ages, It looks like Venom's getting the upper hand, but then bamf, another teleport and a strike with the tail through Venom, just like that. And it looks like Sinister Xeno has defeated Venom. But then Venom starts to fuse with the Sinister Xeno. The symbiote starts consuming him and consuming and consuming until he just erupts through him and absolutely destroys the Sinister Xeno. And that's when the other Xenos kind of look like that, scared shitless. There's a new alpha in town, and when that alpha lets out his roar, they just run away. That's it. And the fight is won. And so they all escape on T'Challa, on T'Challa's Wakandan fleet. And Tony is left behind. His final words when he was bleeding out after the strike. Alone, he recorded a message, and he says, I'm kind of proud that I put off dying all these years. I never really thought about my end. I was so busy creating, and then I met my ultimate nemesis. Like, these things are pure destruction, and I stood for creating, and we need to contain this. You need to keep fighting them. You need to avenge everyone, and if you have the time, avenge me. And that's kind of how it ends. And when we're here, T'Challa also kind of explains to all of them that this whole thing is just, these gods, these engineers, just disappointed with their creations and spreading death to try to cancel what they made. And that's the end of it. And you can see here some of the variants of covers and artwork. And I could see why a lot of these didn't end up being covers, because Sam over here is not even in the thing, like, at all. He's not even mentioned. But these are pretty cool. That's a really cool Wolverine fighting off a bunch of aliens. Here's another one with Spider-Man. Of course, we don't see Peter in this at all. And that's Aliens versus Avengers. I thought it was a pretty fascinating read. It's, like I said, not what I expected. It's a good story. It's a solid story. I think you enjoyed it. I hope you did. Thank you for watching the last video. Thank you for watching this one. I don't know if I want to give these things ratings. It doesn't really seem appropriate. So we'll just go with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And this one to me is a thumbs up. Although I would have preferred seeing the Avengers in their prime fighting these aliens. But maybe that would have been too much of a one-sided battle. Maybe that's why they went with older Avengers. Maybe it would have been too easy. I don't know. Then again, we've seen how easily the Avengers all fell to just a simple zombie outbreak, in Marvel Zombies. So I think they could have made it work. I'm not a fan of misguiding people with covers like this. This is one of the reasons I bought this comic book, to see Captain America kicking alien ass, and they did not give me that, but it's okay. It was a fun story, so all is forgiven. And this is pretty cheap if you pick it up. I think it's just about $20. And this is the entire series, the whole Aliens vs. Avengers. So if you're a fan of comic books, if you liked what you saw here and you want to read the whole thing for yourself, because I just gave you the cliff notes on it, yeah, I would recommend trying it out. And that's it for this video. And next time we will dive into an entirely new story. So I'll see you then, and I hope you have a great night, great rest, great day, whenever you're watching this. I hope when the video stops, everything's great. Alright, I'll see you later.